The moment I walked into the ballroom, I heard her say it. "Oh great," Sloane Whitmore whispered, leaning toward her bridesmaids, champagne glass dangling from her manicured fingers. "The stinky country girl is here." She didn't even bother lowering her voice. She wanted it to travel. She wanted it to land. Her friends laughed softly, the kind of laughter people use when they're trying to sound elegant while being cruel. Designer dresses. Perfect hair. Teeth too white to be real. Sloane didn't look at me. I wasn't worth eye contact. To her I was just an eyesore. An embarrassment that had wandered in from a small town to contaminate the aesthetic of her flawless engagement party. What Sloane didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that I signed the deed to this hotel 3 years ago. The Monarch Hotel. Every chandelier above her head. Every fork she lifted. Every square inch of Italian marble under her overpriced heels. All mine. And by the end of the night, that careless whisper was going to cost her everything. My name is Bethany Burns. I'm 31 years old. I grew up in Millbrook, Pennsylvania. A town so small the biggest emergency we ever had was when Mr. Henderson's cows escaped and blocked Main Street for 3 hours. I left home at 18 with one suitcase, $200, and a very clear understanding that there was no real place for me in my family anymore. I have an older brother, Garrett, the golden child. Growing up, everything I did existed only as a comparison to him, and I always lost. If I got an A, Garrett got an A+. If I made the softball team, Garrett was team captain. If I dreamed big, Garrett was realistic. My mother, Patricia, had a special look reserved just for me. The kind that made you feel like a rough draft while someone else was the finished masterpiece. So I left. Everyone back home assumed I was struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, eating instant noodles in some depressing apartment. That part was true for about 2 years. What they didn't know was that I took a job as a cleaning attendant at a boutique hotel. And that job changed my life. I watched everything, learned everything, worked harder than anyone else in the building. Housekeeping to front desk to assistant manager to general manager. I saved, invested, took smart risks. By 28, I owned my first property. By 30, I owned 3. Now at 31, I run Birch Hospitality, 6 boutique hotels across the East Coast. The Monarch was my flagship, my pride. But you don't get that far by advertising who you are. You get there by letting people underestimate you. So I never told my family. They never asked. To them, I was still the disappointing daughter who ran away and never amounted to much. The irony could have choked someone. Tonight, I stood in the entrance of my own hotel wearing jeans and my favorite boots, hair still carrying a faint trace of countryside from driving through Millbrook on my way here, just to remind myself where I came from. My outfit probably cost more than everything Sloane was wearing combined. But real money doesn't scream. I spotted my mother across the room, holding court with her friends. Garrett stood beside Sloane, smiling like a man who thought he'd won at life. Sloane finally glanced at me. Her smile was sharp, assessing, dismissive. She didn't recognize me as a threat. Good. I smiled back and walked to the bar. My staff knew better than to acknowledge me publicly. Wesley Crane, my general manager, caught my eye from across the room and gave me a subtle nod. Everything was running smoothly. For now. The party was exactly what you'd expect from someone like Sloane. Ice sculptures shaped like swans. A champagne fountain so excessive it bordered on parody. Flowers everywhere. I watched quietly. That's when my mother found me. Patricia Burns approached like someone who smelled something unpleasant and was trying to locate the source. She looked me up and down, paused at my boots. She said it was nice I could make it. Her tone suggested the opposite. Then she asked why I couldn't have dressed more appropriately. Sloane's family, she said, was very refined. I told her I came straight from work, which was true. I just didn't mention that work meant running a multi-million-dollar hotel company. She sighed. That familiar disappointed sigh. Told me to try not to embarrass the family. 20 seconds of conversation and I was 12 years old again. Then Garrett wandered over. He asked if I'd met Sloane yet. Said she was amazing. I said I'd seen her. That's when he mentioned the necklace. Mom had given Sloane Grandma's necklace as an engagement gift. The air left my lungs. My grandmother's necklace. The antique pendant she promised me. The one she pressed into my hand and told me was for the dreamer. The fighter. I looked across the room and saw it around Sloane's neck, sparkling under chandeliers I owned. Something inside me hardened. I excused myself and headed toward the restroom. That's when I heard Franklin Whitmore in the hallway. He didn't see me. He was on the phone, voice tight. He said they needed this wedding to happen. That the Burns family had money enough to fix their situation. Just get through the ceremony, he said. After that, everything would work out. I stood frozen. What money? My parents were barely afloat. Garrett had a decent salary, nothing more. Then it hit me. For 4 years, I'd been sending money home anonymously through Birch Hospitality. Mortgage payments, medical bills, utilities. My parents didn't know it was me, and somehow they thought it was Garrett, which meant Sloane's family thought they'd found a rich target, a family fortune that didn't exist. And that was when I realized something important. This engagement wasn't about love. It was an escape plan. And if no one intervened, my family was about to be destroyed by people who didn't even know who they were really dealing with. I found Wesley near the service entrance and asked him for background information on the Whitmores. Anything. He didn't ask questions. Just nodded. Then Sloane found me. She smiled sweetly until we were alone. Then she tore into me. She called me pathetic, broke, dead weight. She said Garrett told her everything about me. How jealous I was. How nobody would miss me. She walked away confident. She thought I was nothing. Wesley returned minutes later with a folder. His face was pale. Bethany, he said quietly, they're being investigated for fraud. That was when I knew. This night wasn't just about revenge. It was about stopping a disaster. And I was the only one in the room who could. Once you see a lie clearly, you can't unsee it. I returned to the ballroom with a different awareness. Like someone who just realized the floor beneath their feet was hollow. Every laugh sounded rehearsed. Every smile felt transactional. Sloane's voice, Franklin's booming confidence, Delilah's glittering composure, it all felt staged. Because it was. I didn't confront anyone. Not Garrett. Not my mother. Definitely not Sloane. I watched. Franklin kept checking his phone. Not casually, compulsively. Each time his jaw tightened a little more. Delilah touched her necklace repeatedly, fingers grazing the stones like she was reassuring herself it was still there. Sloane smiled nonstop, but her eyes scanned the room constantly, like someone waiting for something to go wrong. People in love don't look like that. People with exit plans do. Wesley slipped back beside me. I pulled public records and news archives, he said quietly. There's chatter. Lawsuits. Shell companies. Nothing finalized yet, but it's not clean. How bad? I asked. He hesitated. Bad enough that if they were smart, they wouldn't be throwing parties right now. That settled it. I stepped outside to the parking garage and called my lawyer, Rebecca Thornton. She answered on the second ring. I summarized everything, Franklin's phone call, Wesley's findings, my suspicion that Garrett was being used as an access point. Give me an hour, Rebecca said. Don't tip them off. Next, I called Naomi Delaney, a forensic accountant who once unraveled a hostile acquisition attempt in under 48 hours. I sent her photos of the documents Wesley found. Her response came in 40 minutes. Bethany, she said, voice sharp with adrenaline, you're right. It's a Ponzi structure. But here's the part you're not going to like. I leaned against my car. They've done this before, she continued. Arizona. 3 years ago. Same pattern. Same shell movement. Different names. Different names. I asked. Yes, Naomi said. Including the daughter. She paused. Her real name isn't Sloane Whitmore. I closed my eyes. Tell me. Sandra Williams. Multiple aliases. Same parents or partners rather. This is a traveling con. I laughed. I couldn't help it. These people weren't wealthy. They were professional parasites. I walked back inside just as my phone buzzed again. A text from Garrett. Something feels off. Can we talk? Too late. I typed back that we'd talk after the toast. Because if I warned him now, he'd warn Sloane. And I couldn't let that happen. Rebecca called back. They're under federal investigation, she said. I confirmed it. Quietly. If they try to flee, authorities will move. But they need public confirmation or attempted obstruction. Good, I said. Then they'll get it. I found Wesley again and told him to prep the AV system. He raised an eyebrow. For what? A presentation, I said, handing him a USB drive. During the toast. He didn't question it. Just took the drive and nodded. At 8:52 p.m. Franklin Whitmore adjusted his tie near the stage. At 8:56, Garrett texted again. Said his instincts were screaming. Said Sloan kept dodging questions. I didn't answer. At 8:59, Franklin stepped onto the stage and lifted his glass. He talked about family, legacy, joining futures. Every word was a lie built on borrowed time. When he raised his glass to toast, I sent Wesley one word. Now, the screens behind him flickered. The engagement slideshow vanished. In its place, a court filing from Arizona. Names, dates, charges. A murmur swept the room. Franklin froze. Another document appeared. Then another. Photos. Financial trails. Sloane's face drained of color. Garrett turned toward her slowly, confusion turning to realization. Franklin tried to leave. Security stopped him. That's when I walked forward. My boots echoed against marble floors I owned. Wesley's voice came through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the owner of the Monarch Hotel and CEO of Birch Hospitality, Bethany Burns. Silence. My mother went white. Garrett stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I took the microphone and told the truth. Not emotionally. Precisely. Names. Fraud. Aliases. Intent. Sloane screamed. Called me jealous. Nobody. A liar. Then the doors opened. Four federal agents walked in. Badges visible. That was the moment Sloane realized something important. She hadn't been marrying into money. She'd been standing inside it. And it didn't belong to her. The room didn't erupt immediately. It went quiet first. That kind of silence where everyone is processing at the same time, where reality crashes into expectation and wins. 50 people stood frozen with champagne glasses halfway to their lips, staring at the screens, at the agents, at Sloane, no Sandra, whose perfect engagement had just detonated. Franklin Whitmore tried to speak. Nothing came out. He looked at Delilah, then at Sloane, then back at the federal agent who had calmly stepped in front of him like a wall that wasn't moving. Franklin Whitmore, the agent said evenly, or whatever name you're currently using, you're under arrest for wire fraud, investment fraud, and conspiracy. Delilah started crying immediately. Loud, dramatic sobs. The kind meant to attract sympathy. Sloane didn't cry. She stared at me. Pure hatred. Garrett was still standing beside her, his arm half raised like he'd been about to touch her when everything fell apart. He looked from the screens to her face, searching for something familiar. Tell me this isn't true, he said quietly. For a split second, Sloane hesitated. Then she lunged. Security intercepted her before she reached me, her nails clawing the air, screaming that I had ruined everything, that I was supposed to be nobody, that I was just the stinky country girl. I leaned in close enough for only her to hear. This stinky country girl owns the floor you're standing on, I said calmly, and every door you're about to be walked through. They dragged her away, still shouting, designer dress wrinkled, hair coming loose, the mask fully shattered. The agents escorted Franklin and Delilah next. Franklin tried to pull away once, panicking, but it only earned him a tighter grip and a warning tone that said resistance would make things worse. As they were let out, Garrett finally stepped away from Sloane. Not dramatically. Not angrily. He just moved back, like someone realizing they'd been standing too close to a fire. I don't even know who you are, he said. That hurt her more than anything else. The ballroom doors closed behind them, and just like that, the engagement party was over. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then someone laughed, nervously. Another guest whispered, "Is the bar still open?" I took the microphone again. "Well," I said, glancing around at the ice sculptures already melting and the champagne fountain still flowing, "the catering's paid for. It'd be a shame to waste good food." A few awkward chuckles rippled through the room. The DJ, bless his soul, put on something upbeat. Shock slowly gave way to motion. People talked, whispered, texted. By morning, the story would be everywhere. Garrett found me near the bar. He looked smaller, like someone who just realized how wrong they'd been for a very long time. How did you know? He asked. I paid attention, I said. I always have. He swallowed. I'm sorry. I studied his face. For once, there was no defensiveness. No ego. Just regret. Sorry is a start, I said. Then my mother appeared. Patricia Burns didn't look angry or proud. She looked lost. I pulled out my phone and showed her the records. 4 years of transfers, mortgage payments, medical bills, utilities. All of that, I said quietly, was me. She stared at the screen, then at me. Her mouth open, closed. I thought it was Garrett, she whispered. I know. Tears filled her eyes. Real ones. Before she could speak again, Garrett walked over holding something carefully in both hands. My grandmother's necklace. Sloane must have torn it off during her meltdown. It lay discarded on the floor until Garrett picked it up. This was always yours, he said, placing it in my hand. The weight of it felt right. Like something lost finally returned. 3 weeks later, the Whitmores, Williamses, whoever they really were formally charged. No bail. Too many victims. Too much evidence. Sloane Sandra sat in a holding cell instead of a bridal suite. I framed one headline and hung it in my office. Stinky country girl owned the room. Garrett came to see me a week later. We talked. Really talked. For the first time in years. It wasn't perfect. But it was honest. My mother started therapy. She said she wanted to understand why she'd overlooked me for so long. I told her we'd take things slowly. Trust takes time. One morning, during a business breakfast at the Monarch, a nervous young woman wandered in. One of my investors made a comment about her not belonging. I stood up, introduced her as a Birch Hospitality Scholarship recipient, sat her at the table, because I know what it's like to be underestimated. People will always try to make you feel small because of where you came from. Let them. While they're busy looking down on you, they won't see you rising. I built everything I have from nothing, and I don't need to announce it. I just need to own the ground they're standing on. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more like it. Comment below what would you have done in my place. And if this story kept you hooked, give it a like. It really helps the